Today I'm going to be talking with Dain, Dr. Dain Heer. He is one of the co-founders of Access Consciousness. And if you're new to Access Consciousness is a set of tools that can change any area of your life. They are not necessarily, you know, coexisting with any other modality I've ever done. They're something very unique and something very powerful that I have been doing for the last 14 years that has really changed every area of my life. And I was so moved by how transformational these tools were that I actually took it up as my life's work and my life's career because I wanted to invite people to get the level of change that I was getting from these tools. And Dr. Dain here, who's going to be my guest today, who I think many of you know, did the same thing. He was transformed by the tools of access and really started to see that life could be ease and life could be magic and life could be possibilities. And he really took up these tools and he has been facilitating access consciousness all over the world and really creating the constant transformation of access consciousness with Gary Douglas. And they have traveled to Access is in 190 countries around the world. I think Barbie is in like 52. So like we are like all over the place, more than Barbie. So I see Dain here now. Hi,
More
Dain.
than Barbie. I'm going to put that on my tombstone.
Totally.
More than Barbie.
I was having a conversation with a friend of ours, Georgia, and she was like, "Did you know that Barbie's in 52 countries and we're in like 190 with access consciousness?" And I thought, Georgia, I like your statistic.
That's awesome.
Totally.
That's my new that I'm going to tell people that, whenever I tell anybody about anything, I'll be like, more than Barbie.
Sitting next to somebody on the plane, I do something
Totally.
that's bigger than Barbie.
Hi, I'm bigger than Barbie. Nice to meet you. So good. I see my future. Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. New perspective for consciousness.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on today. I wanted to really have this conversation with you because, you know, Gary Douglas is, you and him are the co-founders of Access Consciousness, and you have really created this together. And you've created the power and the magic of access from your willingness to gift and receive with each other and with the universe and with others. And it's this huge power of gifting and receiving. So I'd love to sort of talk about that. And I'd love to hear about how you met Gary and how sort of this magical world began.
Well, it's interesting because when you talk about Gary, he's sort of like an enigma surrounded by a riddle wrapped in a puff of smoke.
Dain, so
He's
true.
so different, which is
So true.
really the gift of him. And it's also the thing that makes people kind of go, I feel so strange when I'm around him, or I feel so wonderful when I'm around him because he's not somebody who's going to be there judging you. He's somebody who sees you as a being, and we don't have very much of that in the world we live in. And so he's somebody who sees beyond all of your barriers, all of your boxes, all of your images, all the projections, everything you're trying to prove to everybody else. He's like, none of that has an effect on him. So it's a wonderfully thrilling thing to be around. And for some people, it can be disconcerting because it's so different, but it's really this space of getting access to your being in a different way. And your being is a thing that doesn't judge, that has total caring, has total capacity to do and be and choose and change anything. And so I met Gary back 25 years ago. I had been at a place where I had done every spiritual, metaphysical, self-help, financial thing I could to try to change my life. And I'd been unhappy for the better part of 3 years. And I came across an ad for Access Consciousness bars. And it said, hey, notifications. I don't know if you can hear them, but I'm going to
We
turn them
can't.
now.
They're
Bye-bye. Um, and I came across an ad for Access Consciousness bars that said, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And my response was, hello. No, I was like, are you kidding me? My life is pain, suffering, and gory. And anyway, I had a lot of resistance, but I eventually booked the session. And it was with this young lady named Shannon. And she puts her hands on my head, and I felt this sense of peace that I had not known in years. And after a little while, that started transforming into joy. And inside, I was giggling like a little kid while this session was going on. I was just like, and an hour and 15 minutes later, I got up and I was like, wow, if it feels this way to be alive, I am in. It transformed what I thought was, I had no conception it could feel this way to be alive. And
Wow. I had no conception it could feel this way to be alive. That's a
truly,
powerful invitation.
truly. And I see with people who are going through dark times in whatever area where if they can just get an experience of some lightness, like if they can just sense it in their bones, or something, it gives them hope to carry on. And this transformed what I knew was possible, period. And I had no idea where it would lead at all. I was just like, wow, one little guy in a chiropractic office, and I have this session and everything transforms. So Shannon, who ran my bars, we would get together once a week and I would do chiropractic, she would do bars. And she eventually introduced this stuff called verbal processing. And man, did that take things to a whole new level of being able to change. And I was so excited to be alive. And the space of my life went from this when I started to this. And then every week it would expand. And she would give me a tool every week so that when things wanted to contract, they couldn't, they would go back and expand. And I was like, this is the best stuff in the whole wide world. After I don't know how many sessions, I was like, who created this stuff? And she goes, oh, my stepdad. I was like, you're what?
What?
You mean the person who's done this? You know them personally? She's like, yeah. I'm like, where does he live? She went, here in Santa Barbara. I'm like, are you kidding me? I need to meet this man. And so I said that to her. And she called him and said, hey, there's this chiropractor that wants to meet you. But Gary had already had so many people who want to meet him so they can take something from him.
You're right.
And so several months later, after I'd done my first foundation class, boy, talk about it took everything I've been getting from bars and exploded that even more. I mean, I'm like a kid in a candy store the size of the universe at this point in my life. Like I believe in magic again. I know it exists. And I had totally given up on it, even though I knew it existed when I was a kid. And here it was again. And to have that back, greatest gift I could ever ask for. Okay. So she told him I wanted to meet him. And several months later, right after my first foundation class, he calls and I don't know who it is. I'm answering my office phone, quote unquote. And
Right.
I'm like, hello, Dr.
Oracle
Heer. And he's
display.
like, he's like, yeah, this is Gary Douglas. I want to come in for a session. I'm like, okay, well, I could probably fit you in next week. I didn't know he was psychic and he knew I was lying. He's like, how about I be there in 30 minutes? I went, oh, okay. And this man walks through the door, and I will never forget the being that showed up and walked through the door. It was like a being I'd never seen before. It was
Really?
but yeah, it was, and I didn't even know what I had no idea how I would describe it, but there was this sense of somebody on the planet who there was no limitation. Everything was possible. Like, and I don't even know how to, I mean, that was on first saying hello. Part of me was like, I just want to, jump into your arms and run off into the sunset because
Yes.
this is my life.
That's how I felt the first time I met you and Gary together.
That's so cool. Oh, and it's fun actually to look back on that and to recognize how much was there that I knew that I didn't know that I knew at the time. And so he, it was like, okay, he's like, look, so we started with me. He's like, look, do you want to trade sessions? I was like, oh my God, yes. And so we did a session on my favorite subject, money, because
Mm,
I always had a problem with money and I
mm.
still had a problem with money.
Mm.
And so we did a session, and I had three people sign up in my office that afternoon. Like within an hour of him leaving my office, I was like,
Oh,
"Well, this shit works. This is
whoa.
cool." But he said to me, "Okay, so here I'm a chiropractor. By the way, I thought I was like the worst chiropractor because I knew chiropractors who were creating miracles in people's lives, and that's why I became a chiropractor because." I saw this as a venue for creating that, and it wasn't happening for me at all. All I could see was I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough. I'm an idiot. My life sucks. Can I just lie face down and eat worms now? And so he's like, look, he's like, I want a session from you. He said, but I don't, your chiropractic thing. He's like, you need to go straight to the third level if you're working on me. And I didn't know how to do that. And I said, look, I just started studying that because as a doctor, you can't say I don't know anything, right? Well, I can now, but I didn't know that I could then. He said, look, ask my body what it wants, follow the energy, you will know what to do. He was the first person in my life ever that said I would know. First person whoever said, you
Wow.
know. I was like, oh my God. And there was this something in that acknowledgement and that space that he is opened up a whole new universe. And so I was doing this session, and part of the time I was standing on the other side of the room with my hand in the air, not touching his body at all. I'd never done that before. I was always the idiot, the redheaded stepchild of any energy work that anybody else would do. Everybody else is like, oh my God, it's so good. And I'd be like, I'm a pile of shit. I don't get it.
Right.
And he literally is flopping on the table like a fish. I have never seen this before. And I'm just going with it because there's so much. It's like if liquid peace and joy and possibilities filled the air. And
Oh.
no, there was no sense that anything couldn't be changed. It was like somebody flipped a switch and everything could be changed. And all you had to do was follow the whispers of energy. And so I did because I could, because somebody said you would know and was willing to receive it and be there and match it. And oh my God. And it opened up this whole universe that I now call ESB, energetic synthesis of being, symphony of possibilities, this whole way of working with energetics to change things that I now facilitate other people on. And that was the very first session of it. But it's like this man named Gary, I think he's a man, whatever, this creature named Gary who was willing to be there in with this beautiful way that he is of this space of everything is possible. Let's go.
Yeah.
And you were part of it. And that for me was the thing that really so dynamically got me because before I never felt part of the possibilities. I would
Yeah.
have people who were doing this and this and this, and there are the people up here like, oh, these are good people who do this. Oh, you must listen to good people. You are bad people. Or I had people doing energy work where they were like, and I'm feeling nothing. Like, never felt like I was part of it before. And after that, I knew I was part of it. And part of the gift Gary's been for me is doing my damnedest to let everybody know you are part of this. If you have a desire for more, you're part of it. And it's something that he invited me to know that I will be forever grateful for.
That's so amazing. You know, I love how you're explaining this energy of how powerful being in Gary's presence is and how like just how powerful the inclusiveness and the non-judgment and the sense that everything is possible. And like there have times that I've been around him and it's like I'm I'm it's like I feel thrilled with being like
Hmm.
exposed to the universe and I also have had times where I'm like horrified and I want to run away and other times where it's just like just being seen and received to that level is like the greatest thrill and maybe for some and at times for me like the greatest like you just want to run away because any wrongness of you that you have being exposed to that degree is very intense and it is such a gift to just be that one with somebody. I don't even have the word for it. It's something
That's
else.
well, that's the thing is there are no words, and I'm glad you're also bringing up the idea of, sometimes I'm terrified to be in his presence, but all of that is what's not truly you, the being.
Mhm.
We manufacture a lot of things to get by in this reality and world we grow up in. Because we know fundamentally, judgment and separation should not exist, and yet they do. We know that meanness and abuse should not exist, and yet they do, and they get directed at us all the time. When you're the kind, caring, potent creature, you tend to be the receipt point for as much ugliness as possible, and that makes no sense. So it creates this dynamic cognitive dissonance between what you know should be and what you've lived. And then there's Gary, who's like, I don't care what you've lived. I see what you are. And when you've built a lot of things that are not you, it's like we literally hardwire them in as this autopilot we function from. Ooh, stimulus response, stimulus response. And if you don't believe me, look at a Hollywood party. Stimulus response, autopilot, image, 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 image. Okay, cool. And this is the opposite of that. This is your image has no value here. What you've
Totally.
created as you that's not you doesn't have any relevance. And that can be, if you look at it, it can at first seem terrifying, but if you're willing to receive the gift of it, it is enthusing to a degree that is
It,
beyond reality itself,
it really
because it's a chance to be exposed. It's a chance to be exposed simultaneously to what you actually are. And if you're willing to choose that, you will always get more of that. But it's also a chance to expose simultaneously that which you are not, that which you've created you as, to get by in this reality that's a limitation of who you are. And it's always our choice. That's the other thing about Gary is he doesn't care what you choose. He just wants you to choose. He wants you to have choice. He wants you to know you have choice. And that's another weird thing because you can't try to manipulate him with your, I see all the time women who use their
is.
body and their sexuality to get a lot of things from guys. And they try it on Gary and he's like, hi, you know.
Totally,
Nice
totally.
heels. Okay. What, like nice cleavage. What am I supposed to do here with this, And that's the other thing is you can't get away with your shit. Now, is Gary perfect? No, none of us is. And so, people will try to find one thing that he didn't do perfectly and use that as a reason to reject everything he sees in them. And that's unfortunately a function of how we've learned to grow up in this reality, is to try to protect the image we've created as though it's us, and the platform we are functioning from as though it's us, as though if we just get it right, we will get everything right, except we've all been living that. We all know it doesn't work, or at least we should at this point know it doesn't work. And are you looking for something different? Are you looking for just a better version of what you had? And that is the choice, one of the choices or fundamental, not that there's such a thing as one choice to rule them all, but that's a big choice that each of us can look at for ourselves. Am I willing to have something different, even if I'm not controlling it? Even if it means I have to receive from everything and everyone around me that can contribute? Even if it means I don't get to be right anymore? Even if it means I don't get to be wrong anymore? Even if it means I don't project and expect anymore of me or anyone or anything? Even if it means I have everything I actually desire and don't have anything to complain about anymore? And that really is the space that Gary offers. And it's pretty amazing and also can be pretty intense for people when
Yeah,
they're expecting to be able to do the same thing they did with other people to get a result.
yeah, yeah. It's an entirely, entirely different space. And it's like for you, like you have received a lot from Gary, and that receiving has been part of like creating access consciousness. Like my husband Anthony, who is you guys are pals, and Anthony says, "Gosh, Dain receives so much from Gary, like man to man." And Anthony is just like, that is a beautiful thing, like as a man, for a man to receive that much from a man. And so that's sort of one kind of genre of the energy, but like just overall, like where did you go in your own world to go, I'm having this, whatever it takes, there's something that this man has to offer, and he's really offering me the whole universe and just in like a person inviting me to the energy of the whole universe. Like, can you talk about your choices that you made at that time and continue to make to receive in that way, where a lot of others just wouldn't have the courage that you had, and how others can have the courage?
Well, you actually said it. I'm having this.
Mm,
Whatever he's inviting me to, I'm having it. And I know I'm not there yet, but I know I will get there. Whatever it looks like, whatever it takes, I'm having that. And I have to say, it's like we've been roommates and best friends for, I guess, roommates for 24 years. We've shared a house for 24 years, I think, somewhere around that time. Um,
yeah.
first in Santa Barbara and then in Houston. And it's great because we share a house. He has the top floor, I have the bottom floor, you know? And it's great because there will be times where we don't see each other at all for an entire day. And then I'll come up and go, good night. He'll go, good night.
Yeah.
But it's like, and I would love to say it's all been rainbows, unicorns, and roses, but Gary's also a person, a brilliant person. I'm also a person, a brilliant person, but a person. And part of the growing pains had been where, I started getting more awareness, more potency, more capacity, and he would have stuff come up because of that, and as a person would here. But everything that we have ever done as people, we work through so we can be beyond being a people.
Mm,
And that commitment on both sides to consciousness, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it takes, is an interesting thing because people think the commitment to consciousness is something, but what it really is embracing everything with no judgment. A definition of consciousness where everything exists and nothing is judged. And so what that requires is when your buttons get pushed, as it will with any person you were living with ever, what we do is we use the tools of access consciousness because anytime, and what I've learned is anytime there's a contraction, well, let's put it this way. If you're truly asking for consciousness, like if you went right now, you know what, I'm making a demand to become conscious. Why would you do that? Well, because number one, it's way more fun. Number two, there is no such thing as a problem that you can't solve, and eventually there will be no such things as problems. Number three, it allows you to actually enjoy being alive. It allows you to create any possibility, and it contributes dynamically to having a sustainable living earth and all kinds of other reasons. It's where you can actually be happy and not have to get that up, give that up. But if from the moment of saying, "Hey, I'm choosing consciousness," or "I'm making a commitment to consciousness," what happens is every single contraction that ever occurs from that point is a place where you have a point of view of something that's sticking you, and all you got to do is address it and be willing to change it, and then that thing will never stick you again.
yeah.
And given that Gary and I are committed to consciousness, whatever that looks like, it it allows it allows a different space, a different set of choices, it allows you to chart a different course. But it also requires balls of steel in a lot of ways. Okay. Because if you could imagine coming to Gary with something he doesn't want to look at that needs to be looked at to be changed, and then
That's balls of
having
steel, Dane. That's balls of steel.
yeah, that's balls of steel. And Gary is like anybody else. He won't look at anything until he's willing to look at it. You would think it's like, hey, Gary, here's this. He's like, I don't do that. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll wait till next time when he might be willing to hear it. But yeah, of course he does. He's not perfect, neither am I, but he's far clearer than anybody else I've ever met or heard of, and far more pragmatic in all of it. So it's that demand that we both have to get more conscious and more aware. And what that also necessitates is giving up where you're trying to be right, giving up where you're trying to make the partner wrong, giving up having to have a point of view, and giving up trying to control you or anybody else. And beyond that, then it also is about inviting possibilities that other people can't even fathom can exist and being willing to choose them anyway.
Dang. That's powerful. That's a big ask, and that is balls of steel. And it is, I see so many people around me, like in Access, actually doing this and making these really brave choices in their day-to-day lives, and then get to watch like how they become greater and how they transform and how their lives start to flourish and how they look more amazing and healthier, like just more alive in their skin and they have more of everything and more possibility. And it's like it's very encouraging to see um, somebody work through something that is just seems like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look at this. I don't want to go here. Please don't make, it's like this is the ugliest thing in the world. This is a part of me that is pure evil. Nobody look. And them looking and being willing to expose that to themselves and maybe in a public forum in a class or maybe with a facilitation with a friend or just to themselves, just exposing that and how that their allowance and their willingness to go there with themselves, how that um transforms into this greater life and this greater sense of themselves and also the greater ability to contribute, which is like I think that through all the things that you and Gary have worked to on yourself, your ability to contribute is just the greatest gift to the world, because you need to be able to look at yourself and change things with these balls of steel in order to contribute more consciousness to the world. And
Totally.
I so love watching this process and doing it myself and just seeing it going on in the world.
Well, it's this amazing thing because so many of us are hiding so much of us based on we're bad, we're wrong, we're terrible, we're vicious, we're evil, we need to hide these parts of us. And those are always the most beautiful parts of us. And it's a sadness that we've been made wrong for. Like if you could see you as a little being of light, when you were born, and anything that you are that is more than your parents and the people around you are totally comfortable with. Like basically, a lot of you were like Gary when you were little, okay? But you had adults around you, rather than them receiving it, going, "Oh my God, I'm changing everything. Look what's possible." They did to you what was done to them, which is all kinds of energy directed at us to get us to withdraw and limit ourselves and judge ourselves and think of anything that's not standard and not judgeable as evil and something to be hidden. And so you are correct. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to unearth those things and find out that what's under there is not evil, it's the opposite. It
That's
is a creature that by its very being invites and creates possibilities
oof.
and joy and movement and change. And that's what we've really been hiding. And that's also when you're in the presence of Gary, that's also what freaks you out because that is being acknowledged, but you've spent so much of your life trying to hide it that, okay, shit, what do I do now? This has been my prime directive is hiding this. Well, what if your prime directive didn't have to be hiding that anymore? What if you could instead change that and all the contracts and everything associated with it and now have as your prime directive finding that, unearthing that, getting to be that you actually are. And it does require courage because it would be one thing if everything that was a lie or a limitation in your life right before it came up was like, ding, ding, ding. In 3, 2, 1, you are going to experience a lie that you instituted at 2 years old, and it's going to feel like it's true. Ding, ding,
But
ding. You're ugly, but it doesn't work that way. We're the ones who have to discover that it's a lie by recognizing what's true makes you lighter, a lie makes you heavier, and if it contracts you, it's not true for you. So the idea that there's something to hide about you is a lie. There's so much more to expose. There's so much more to unleash on the world because it's those of us. Here's another thing. Somebody who truly is evil never thinks they're evil. Somebody who truly is judgmental never thinks they're judgmental. It's just you guys. So truly, if you've ever had the thought, oh my God, I'm so judgmental, it means you're not. Because somebody who truly is judgmental never thinks they're judgmental. They just know they're right and you're wrong.
That is a great rule of thumb. That is a rule of thumb to put in one's pocket.
Yeah. So you have all these beautiful seekers, these beautiful humanoids around the world, these weirdos like you and me, and if you've been called weird, that's appropriate because the original meaning was of spirit, fate, or destiny. So a bunch of us weirdos going around thinking we're the most terrible things on the planet, while somebody like, I don't know, your president, for example, anybody who is doing total destruction and evil never thinks they're wrong. They
Yeah.
think they should be in charge and have control. Well, if we're going to create something different in our lives, we're going to have to get over the story of that validates our nonstop judgment of ourselves, that validates our nonstop wrongness of us, that validates hiding the beauty that we've been told is wrong, bad, evil, awful. No, it's not. Your beauty is a gift. It's just anybody who wants to control you doesn't want you to know it, and you've been buying in. Stop it.
Wow. 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 I you made my brain disappear with the last things that you just
You're
said.
welcome.
That was so melty. Wow. Well, God, Dane, thanks for having this conversation. This was like just the angle of it, I think is just so profound and it just invites all of us to a space of it's really a space that this conversation was and it's like how can we bring this space into our lives and be with this space and create with this space and just I'm so grateful that for every choice that you made that you and Gary made together to create this and to get here. So thank you for your
Thank you.
choices.
And I am grateful for the choices every one of you guys is making.
Yeah.
And I also realize it can seem thankless, like because we're hoping, we'll make a huge courageous choice
Mhm.
and then we'll expect or hope that somebody will validate us for it,
Oh yeah.
but they don't, they can't. Because you can't be validated or acknowledged. You can't be acknowledged for something that you don't acknowledge in yourself. So I'd like everybody to look back at some of the courageous choices you have made that you never got credit for. But if you give yourself the credit, if you give yourself the acknowledgement, that's where it truly becomes yours. Because none of this is about somebody else. But the interesting part is when the buck stops here, when you choose, I'm going to do this for me, that's when you have an impact on the world in a totally different and greater way. And one last thing I want to bring up that is an awareness I had recently. For a long time, there were people who either liked Gary and Gary's classes or Dain and Dain's classes. There were some that liked both. Actually, there were a lot that liked both. But there were some people who really very particularly liked either my classes, because what I do is I take people on an energetic journey and it's, I can't even, it's like here we're going through the universe. You're going to have a different universe by the time this facilitation, this class is gone through, And the way Gary does it is totally different. And the way Gary does it lately has been even more brilliant than it used to be. And that is partially based on some of the things he and I have gotten to and
Yeah.
that he's gotten to and that we've gotten to. And you can see where these things contribute to each other. But what I wanted to say was what finally seems to be here is the gift of both that they've always been that people couldn't see, which was Gary's this like talking to you while changing the energetics with lightning bolts, but also his point of view is choose, bitch. Okay. And mine of let me show you the energetic universe through and around all of it so you actually get what's going on here and can recognize that none of your choices are wrong. And here's a whole universe of choices. Well, could you imagine combining those two? That's what's finally it's been happening forever, but people are finally getting the gift and the value of, and it's not just me and Gary. I'm using us as examples of this particular thing because it's opening up for all the access facilitators
Yeah.
because it's
And if one
what's
of us, like
available.
if one of us is excluding the way that you do classes, or if one of us is excluding the way, but or excluding the way that Gary is, it's like we're excluding things about ourselves that if we let those things out, they would be a contribution to consciousness. They would be a contribution to what you were facilitating and what Gary is facilitating. And it's like rejecting the way you do things or the way Gary does things is just a form of rejecting the way we do things and what we have to offer the world.
It's so well put. Exactly that. And I hope people can just take a moment and be with that because you reject in someone else what you're rejecting in you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
dude, what else is possible beyond that? How much more fun can we have?
Totally. Wow. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank you.
and chatting with us.
Thank you. And thank you to all the translators and all the behind the scenes amazing people.
Yes.
And thank you,
Yes.
Julia, for having these conversations. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. There's just so much for all of us to have and choose and I really one of my favorite lines of today's conversation was about when you were working with Gary at the beginning and it was like the liquidy magical
Hmm.
like silver gold in the room, what I don't know the exact words, maybe Monica has them, but it's like it's like it's that sense of life and living that you know I've had depression, I know what it's like to wake up in the morning and not be able to get out of the bed and like moving from one side of the bed to the other to like get a drink a glass of water is so painful. You can't even do it. You just want to die and it feels like there's no beginning or end and you'll never get out of this and you just want to die. And and then it's like to have that energy also in the world as a choice for choosing. It's like it's there. And I think sometimes we just need a reminder that it's there and we have a way to go for it. And so yeah, oh, liquid joy. Oh, that's cool. Oh,
Liquid
Monica
peace.
said it. So
There
liquid
you
peace
go.
and joy, liquid peace and joy and possibilities filling the air. Wow. That is so cool. And that's available. So how does it
That.
get better? And thank you, Dane.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Awesome. Bye.